Okay, I'm going to try to stick on this just one subject or one focus because I've been trying to say a few simple things, and I guess it adds up to complexity. Um, I was watching your video, Quintic, Hythloday, um, talking to Trick. There were many things I'd like to make a couple comments on, but just this one thing, or I don't know how to count if it's one or not. But anyway, first of all, on the idea, Trick says at one point that we are observing the properties of things. And no, that's not true. I think that's demonstrable. Okay, this eye gets a little tiny red blotch. This eye gets a little tiny red smudge too. And those are two images, two two-dimensional images, right? They obviously get processed, deduced into, oh, I see an apple. Yeah, well, just because evolution has built this processing into the brain, it doesn't mean it's not going on. No, we create a model, we go, oh, there, and then the properties of that model, we didn't receive a property. We received red color. We also receive hunger and lust and greed, curiosity, joy, feel, touch. We receive all of these streams of information. And it's important to go back because when we're talking about these super tiny little things, we're way out on a limb. And the root is back in what we can see. And when we're talking about things that we don't see in ordinary life, like electrons, it's because we can see the results of experiments and the explanation of how the experiment was performed. And so that's still us seeing it. So to me, that shows that even if the apple is out there having properties, the things we're talking about when we talk about the apple's properties are properties of the model once it's in here. Because we didn't receive an apple through our eyes, and we didn't even receive the model of the apple through the eyes. We just got some smudges of color. And if it's of a coyote howling running along in front of us, we get sound and sight. Okay, I do have to make one asterisk to point out something I said in comments, I think, which is the concept of space is really a unification theory for the senses, right? It's what the senses have in common, at least the five senses, traditional. Um, they can be spatially located, right? Though it's funny because taste has a different space, right? Our idea of the mouth is more sensitive, so we have a lot more high resolution in the mouth and things feel bigger. Okay, I got diverged anyway. So anyway, it's obvious that the properties we're talking about are in the model in our head, and that's the intentional part. Out there, things we recognize in whatever their actual state must be, and I'm a materialist, so I believe that it has a state out there. But there's always a separation between our concept, but it's useful to have our conceptions. Now, sometimes you can invent either one of these things anew, and in science and philosophy, this is almost the point, I guess, of what we're trying to do. So, for example, Gary's case, he's made up this stuff about tons and stuff. Well, tons ought to have an extension. We see no phenomena of that extension. Gary's making an intentional description of it, and his idea is that if you follow good logic, it'll turn out real and you'll find the extension in the real world and your intention will, but that doesn't always work out so hot. But on the other hand, in science, there's a trick. It's like, well, no, we're explaining something that should have an extension. Eventually, we should be able to find that, such that that thing that would have an extension can explain these phenomena we see. Well, as I said, the primary epistemological reality is we're sitting here having the stream of consciousness. And your idea that we don't really, that things are determinists, it's like even your actions. You're not really deciding to make a sandwich, you're observing yourself feeling like you were deciding that. And you're just observing all of this, and even I do believe there's such a thing as willpower plays a non-zero role in it, but it's still the same thing, and it's hard to tell when it's willpower and impulsion and everything else. So besides that question, which is kind of part of another part of philosophy, we're just observing everything, all of these sensations, including the sensation of wanting something and doing it, and so on and so forth. Right, and so if you come back to this base, you can see if there's an extension already. So when the sun rises, if somebody has this theory of a God going across the sky and I become an atheist, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. The phenomena is there, and I have a picture of it with my eyeballs, or I have a picture of it with the camera, or I have a picture of it with some other measurement device that ultimately all comes in through senses. Right, and so this is the real extension, are the images. That's the real extension of something for a person. The actual empirical extension is the images somebody has received of something. So with something like space or waves or the sunrise, whatever someone's theory that I might reject of what that's all about, intentionally their description that is supposed to be able to get to the gist of it, to identify the core of it, to be able to, given a random selection of things, figure out which things were that term or not, whatever the term might be. Given a random sample of phenomena, electrons and, you know, grandmas and whatever, the intentional idea of a field would be able to pick out which ones should be called fields. Now, in Gary's case, he's trying to explain phenomena with these particles, but it's like, it's not working. I mean, and it's so important, the mathematics, because it's really hard to set up a mechanics, mathematically, where pressure leads to orbiting behavior. I mean, it's with shadows and stuff. I mean, for all of that to line up just right, it's so delicate and impossible. I'm not sure if it could be done really if you're trying to obey conservation of energy. Oh, well, this I did stay on this one subject, but I didn't make it obvious that that's what I've done. I guess I didn't actually do it anyway. Well, there you go.